Okay, well, the first thing that I'm going to do before we begin is I'm going to say a big thank you to both of you, Patrick and Michelle. It is lovely to have you here this morning, and I would like to begin just by thanking you both for taking time out of your morning to do this today. And it is lovely to be here with you both and lovely to be having this conversation. So that's the most important thing is the gratitude, I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We're delighted to be here with you this morning.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I will also say a thank you to our audience as well, because everyone who is tuning into this, all different corners of the globe, it is a pleasure to have you with us. And as always, we are creating this interview to be of service to all of you, to enlighten, expand consciousness, expand awareness, introduce you to new traditions, new spiritual pathways. And today, is going to be a very interesting talk because Patrick and Michelle are the founders of Soul Reflections, as you can see lower down the screen here, and specialists in Iboga. Now, this wonderful medicine, the effects, the treatments, everything that they do, we're going to be finding out more because this comes from an ancient and sacred tradition. The forms of retreats and healing that Patrick and Michelle host are very unique, very powerful. And all I'm going to say at this stage is they have a positive impact together on the lives of so many people. All of the exact definitions of what they do is not up to me to say, it's up to them to say, but I will say that these are profoundly inspirational healers. And I really hope that with the fairly brief conversation, it'll be about an hour, that we have today, there is some benefit for all of you watching this in your lives, and you can really learn, as I've mentioned, a different spiritual pathway. So I would like to extend the warmest welcome possible, guys, to both of you. And as I've already said, it's lovely to be here. And I would like to begin, if it's okay, with your own journey, both of you. And in a sense, obviously, two different journeys that have converged beautifully together into one. But nonetheless, you're both seekers. And some people will be hearing about you for the first time, you guys. So before we get into Iboga itself, before we get into the heritage and find out more, as we can see with those beautiful masks and all of these things, just to set the scene to make the spiritual path relatable. That's the reason I'm asking this question. There will be other people out there searching, looking for answers in their own way. So hearing just a little bit about what you both went through in your own search, I just feel is very sort of healing, inclusive, and relevant for a lot of people. So whichever of you would like to go first or together, may we begin there, please? Thank
Thank
you.
you. Well, we both have worked in the hospitals and acute hospitals in critical care for so many years. Me, it was 30 years, and my wife for 18 years. And, really loved what we did. And the medicine called us, and it called us to come and help start a treatment center with using ibogaine, which is one alkaloid of the 100 or so alkaloids that are in the Tabernacle Iboga. And so we started doing that and saw tremendous success. And within a couple of years, we were introduced to the traditional use of Iboga. And so, like, once again, the medicine was calling us, and went there. And when I saw how the medicine and the spirit of Iboga moved in that, it was like, yes, this is where we need to be. So long and short, we became students of this medicine, and really searching to what it does and how it does what it does and why it does what it does. And we really started to see, because being in the medical field, we never saw it totally, but now we can see people being healed or having tremendous healing effects, because it's not just physical, it's mental and it's spiritual, which of course isn't done in the medical model, the spiritual component of it. So yeah, so that's a little bit of the very background.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, both Patrick and I, loved working in the healing arts, and initially, found nursing as the way to do it. And then, as we gained experience in the medical field, you realize where it works really well and then where it doesn't work so well. And we just found that connecting with the medicine and working with people in that way, especially in the beginning when we were starting with addiction, it sort of helped in ways that were not being supported in sort of that medical model, the current modern medical model. And I strongly feel that these medicines are coming out now, not just Iboga, but psilocybin and CBD and all of them, really, 5-MeO, all that kind of stuff. They're all coming out to bring us back, bring us back to connecting with ourselves and realizing the healing power within ourselves, that we have to start there. And that there's nothing wrong with the modern medical model. It works great. And I think we need to continue to utilize it in all its ways that have helped move us forward and help create, the health of the individual as it is now. But that we also need to incorporate these older teachings that have been with us for a long time, that incorporate spirituality, connection, community, self-governance, all those sorts of things, and self-discovery and spirit. Yeah. So it's a where Patrick and I find ourselves is kind of like trying to bridge the two, trying to like say, look, there's a way to do this where we consider all aspects of the human person, like the spiritual, the mind, the body. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, it's very beautiful work that you both do, and the journey to get there, it makes a lot of sense actually, hearing from my side as well that little bit of context about the medical profession, the healing arts, as you put it. I mean, it's wonderful because you are healers, and it's changed form, but I love the integration of the ancient and the modern, some of these aspects. So, okay, now one of the things that is going to be interesting here, and really with a lot of the questions today, guys, I'm just going to throw them out to both of you, okay? And then whoever wants to answer first can do so. But with this, now, Patrick, you said the name of the country, Gabon, much more beautifully than myself. But nonetheless, some of these traditions come from there, and particularly with the ceremonial aspect and everything. Now, I'm being totally honest with you guys. When I first heard of you, so I'd heard of Iboga before, but in terms of the practices from Gabon and some of these things, I've been reading about it in preparation for you guys, and it's the first time I've heard of some of it, and I'm very inspired. And that's so I'm just being very upfront about that. And some of the people listening to this will be in the same boat, if you like. They'll be in my shoes where they're also hearing about this for the first time. And the history, particularly as I've said with the ceremonial aspects, you can teach me how to pronounce it the correct way shortly. But it's very beautiful, very rich, and very meaningful. And really, I would like to speak a little bit about that. And I'm sure this is something in a few minutes we can only scratch the surface of. But nonetheless, people who are hearing about this for the first time, can we go a little bit deeper? And I suppose that it needs to be included here when you both visited there or when you both went to places where this is practiced as well. There's probably a really cool story with that aspect. So may we go a little bit deeper into that aspect, please? Both. Thank you.
Yeah. So while we've been working with this medicine for the early years, we were learning more and more and more about this tradition and the Bwiti, and which is a tradition, and it simply means the study of life, your life, and that's what we're here. on this earth is to study your life and to enjoy your life and to make the most of it and understand it. And so we ended up going to Africa, and we got initiated. Yeah, somewhere around there. And we got initiated and did a few other initiations, and we were initiated into the Bwiti Masoko. I know that's just one of the different branches that are in the Bwiti. And the Bwiti tradition has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And, you know, one of the things they do is they incorporate the use of Iboga, the tabernacle Iboga, and they use it to study themselves, to study nature. You know, they use the connect to themselves, to connect to source. You know, one of the side effects, it helps interrupt addiction. You know, and that's where, you know, moving way forward with Howard Lotsoff in the early 60s, you know, he stumbled across that and found out he was no longer having withdrawals to heroin. And it's like, the lights go on. So, you know, we have something here, you know, but with the traditions, it's such a beautiful, beautiful way to come to the medicine and to really take a look at ourselves. This is a medicine of the mind, you know, as much. So Iboga is not a true hallucinogenic, much like DMT type base medicines. This is a neurogenic, so like dream walking, dreamscaping to create. You know, one of the things people say the most when they're in the midst of a Iboga journey, so to speak, is that they feel really grounded. They feel like they're right here, like I'm not really feeling much, but yet they're seeing or they're experiencing. You know, so it's a really, really different, but it's a real medicine of the mind, and it shows us what we've been doing. It shows us how we've been doing with ourselves, not with other people, but with ourselves, because it's really, we need to look after this so we can be better with everything else. You know, we can love more. We have to love ourselves to love more, you have service to others, etc. You want to finish with the briefing?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that this, I mean, they have evidence of the Bwiti culture existing at a minimum of 2,000 years ago. So it is a really old tradition. It has many branches. They kind of, in Gabon itself, there's 40 languages. The primary language being French. It was colonized, Gabon was colonized by France. But so it's a really diverse and interesting tradition. And the Gabonese people, from our experience being there, are beautiful, you know, have this very self-assured, confident way of being, and have been we have been very blessed in the fact that they have been so kind in sharing and teaching us about this tradition and about the medicine. Yeah, it's quite the experience to go to a country you've never been, a culture and a language you can't speak, and immerse yourself in it in such a way that it totally realigns you. It totally allows you to see the world from a new perspective.
You know, and you know when Iboga is calling you, because you know, going to Africa is not for everyone. And when you touch down in Gabon and you put your feet on the ground, it's like going home. You just feel that sense you've been called home, you know, and it really starts to speak with you. So when we were, one of the years we went to Gabon, you know, we were there, and at that time we actually had a retreat center in Costa Rica. We had picked up and moved to Costa Rica, and with some friends had started a retreat center, and this is around year 2 of it, and we were in Africa, and I was in the one village, and she was just down the road at another village, and we both had this vision at nighttime that we need to go home to Canada, go home now and start community. that it was super, super important. I mean, to still continue to serve medicine and work with it, but to start community, because this medicine is a real community medicine. It's a medicine of tribes. When you go to get initiated in Africa, you have people from all over Gabon, they come all over, 50, 60, 70 people. And there's all different levels of Gangas and Nimas and shamans or whatever, like all different levels, and they're all there and they all take part and they all lift you up. So it told us that we needed to start community to be able to help people come to medicine better, more efficiently, more intently, and to help them with integration. So we picked up, came back here, and we started Soul Reflections, which is, it's our Iboga retreats, but it's also our online community where we help people with in-depth preparation, help them going through the medicine, and then help them with the integration, which is so needed, because that's where you make sense of everything. That's where the practical application of this magical moment happens. And it's super, super important. So we did that. And with our online community, it's not just for people who come to us to have medicine. It's anyone who's going to, say, do Ibogaine or Iboga anywhere, and they want some help doing preparation and integrating. It's open for that. So that's one of the things we did. And one thing that we've learned is that when the medicine speaks to you, listen, because if you don't, we've seen it get really loud with people, and it's like, so it's best to listen. And so, yeah, and it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful.
Beautiful process.
Absolutely. Well, it still is a very beautiful process, but there's something else, guys, that stands out to me here that I also think there's a valuable life lesson, and that is courage. That is the theme of courage on several counts with both of you. Obviously, the transformative journey in the healing arts, in other words, coming out of the traditional into the alternative. I really don't like labels, but I'll just put it that way for our audience, okay? Also, as we've already mentioned, going to Africa, being initiated, but then there's a third layer of courage here, which is what you're doing now. In other words, taking this out there, taking the medicine out there to people who need it. Now, that's a beautiful thing because you're reconnecting people with their souls and all of these wonderful things you've described. It makes a lot of sense. But it is a courageous decision because in many ways, you're standing up and being counted for who you are, what you represent. And I would imagine there were some challenges with that process. Now, when I do these talks, I always keep things sort of very positive, but I would like to briefly touch on that aspect because I hope by sharing that story, it will inspire other people not to dwell on anything sort of negative or too personal with you guys, but just to show people that they can stand up and be their totally authentic selves. And that is something that I just think is so cool and so amazing about you both, to be honest, is you're just totally your authentic self and you're totally helping so many people to heal in different ways. So that's the context why I'm asking. But in those sort of early years or that early period of time, what were some of the things you had to push through to get to where you are now? Please, let's talk about that.
Well, I think, in the beginning, it's a lot of work because you're living, you don't give up your day job, to start, so we continued to do nursing. We worked in a hospital. There's always risk when you're doing something alternative and not mainstream. So we were always mindful of safety. I think our nursing practice really, it really taught us a lot about responsibility. It taught us a lot about being responsible to the people whom we serve medicine to and what that really means. Nursing teaches you accountability. It's built into our code of ethics. And so I think we've done well over the years of bringing that into the medicine space. And as well, we're working in spaces that are not regulated. So, you have to be really mindful of who you work with. You have to be really mindful of, what you want and who you want to be and what you want to stand for, and to not allow the shiny things along the way to distract you. And we're always tested. We're always tested. We're always going to be asked to do something that feels scary, or feels like when we moved from Costa Rica back to Canada, we had to just leave everything. We'd spent a couple of years building a business, building a company, working with other people. And when that wasn't aligning anymore, then we had to decide to just leave, and to then just start all over. Which feels like, man, that sucks, right? When you got to start all over. And it takes time, but it was worth it. And it's a learning journey. And every time we something comes up that feels disappointing, or that feels like, oh man, I don't, is this really where we want to go, or how we want to do things? When you do the right thing, when you follow that path that is the right way, even though it feels like the path of most resistance, that you're going backwards almost, it's worth it in the end. So yeah, I think over the last 13 years, we just continue to learn. And I think just being open to learning and keeping that, like knowing you're never going to know everything, and you're never going to know even a fraction of everything. So just to be that constant student, to be that constant learner who is open to new ideas, open to seeing things in a new perspective, and shifting what you thought you knew. Because and I think that's one thing that we've really, really learned, that we have to allow for things to move. We have to allow for things to expand and contract, and to go with the flow, and to trust that, the however you want to call it, God, the universe, life, it has your back. There's a flow, there's a path, there's a way, and you have to trust in it.
And with that, I would add, when you learn to say, trust the medicine, trust the spirit of the medicine,
Trust yourself,
and love everything about it, it's reciprocated back. If you offer a reciprocatory process to this tradition, to this medicine, it comes back to you. But learning to trust it, learning to trust yourself, like that's a big one. Trust in myself. And we say it all the time, oh yeah, I trust myself, but do we? And that's a big one, because that's all encompassing. There's love, and there's trust, there's understanding, there's really in depth. And that's what this medicine is really good for, making you and helping you to look at. So yeah, we find that more that we trust, more that we show respect for the medicine, the more it shows us.
Well, that is a beautiful description, both of you. I mean, they're very eloquent speakers, both of you. I'm really enjoying listening to this. I mean that sincerely, and it is a beautiful description on many levels. And with that being said about the process that you've both been through, and the eternal student, as you said there, Michelle, I love that. Obviously now this is having a profound positive impact on a lot of people, as I said at the beginning, and this is something that is just amazing. And I would like to talk about that. And really it has two sides. It has the side of the people who are healing, transforming, changing, all of these different words, but also from your side being the facilitators of this. I mean, if we're talking about the introduction to the medicine, in many cases, the correct usage, all of these things, Patrick, that you were just saying, trusting yourself, all of these things we've been talking about, you're both guiding people through these processes. So when you see somebody radically change their life in a positive sense? This is the question in a nutshell. Simple question is how you both feel. I mean, I know it's the medicine in itself in many ways doing the work, and I know that it's that person allowing the process to happen, and as you said there, the correct intentions, love, all of these things. I do understand that. So I'm, in a way, I'm not um, putting either of you on a pedestal because this is very much a group effort, and I'm just making that clear. However, you're still playing a very, very valuable part in making all of this possible. So then, when people come to you after a retreat or these different sessions and say, "Hey, look, I've got a totally different way of being, a totally different, way of living, whichever forms that takes," how do you both feel? How do you both process that sort of feedback in that sense? If that makes
For
sense.
me, yeah, it makes sense. For me, it's like it's so inspiring. I feel so inspired by the medicine, by the people who come to do the work, and then there's so much gratification, you know, watching someone come to the medicine to do their work, you know, we're merely tools here, put in this spot to help people help themselves. And they're doing all the heavy lifting. We're holding the ladder and they're up on the top, cleaning the eaves troughs out and the gutters out, and it's so inspiring to watch them, you know. I remember in the hospital being part of the code team when someone has an arrest, and we all run to the people. We're shocking them. We're giving medicine. We're compressing all these things, and all of a sudden they make it. And then a few weeks later and months later, they're doing well. And it's not like, oh, look what I did. No, it's like, wow, look what they did. Look what's become of them. And it's so incredible that all the stuff that we've ever done up till now has led to these moments. All the training has led to these moments to be able to support people, and we can never support people enough, and for me, I love watching them remember who they are. Love watching them go, oh, I remember. Yeah. And they shine. And for me, that's amazing.
I think, a lot of times we develop, because we're in these really intimate spaces with people, we develop it feels like a lot of times our guests feel like family. They feel like we make a connection of support in that way. And so we like to maintain that. So it's nice that we get to continue to be in people's lives. We get to continue to hear them work through the processes. Taking Iboga or any of these medicines, or doing any spiritual practice, is not a weekend retreat and you're done. It's like a lifelong journey, and it's the little things here and the little thing there that shifts us. And it's fun to watch people do that. And it reminds you to do your own practice. It reminds you to continue your own journey. And it's not always easy. And I think this is a really important thing to explain to people. It's not always easy. Like sometimes we have realizations that really rock us, that really they're hard to process in the beginning. And that's why having the community, I think, why the medicine especially was so wanting us to create that, was because it's not always easy to shift through some realizations, of the way the world works or the way you see things, or to initially take on responsibility for your own self. Those are hard things. Like when we realize how much control we have over our lives and how much control we've been allowing others to have over us, that can be a hard shift, to finally say, I'm going to take responsibility for myself, and I'm not going to blame others anymore. So I think one of the most important things we tell people is Iboga doesn't take your choice away. So whether you're coming for addiction or PTSD or anxiety or depression or just spiritual growth, it doesn't take your choice away. So no matter what the medicine shows you or does for you, or, you know, allows you to see or understand, you still have the choice to take that information and do whatever you want with it. You know, so I think it's so beautiful because it helps us in the most pure way of like, here you go. Here's where you can be your most authentic self. Here's where you can draw all your strength from. You can learn to rediscover to love yourself. But it's all just it never takes your autonomy away. It never says, you know, this is the only way. You still get to choose, which is part of being the most beautiful part of being human. And coming back to a spiritual path is the choice. So it's really humbling to watch people move and shift and grow. And I think, and we always have to be careful that while we can feel, it feels good, you know, like when you see people like grow and, you know, someone discover how to love themselves again. I mean, that is like amazing. But also not to take too much of that on, because it really has nothing to do with me. It's their journey, it's their path, you know, it's up to them. I was, you know, we were, you know, just there for that little moment along the way. And then we get to the benefit of sort of seeing that growth or witnessing their, you know, shift and whatever, and you know, and I don't like enlightenment in the sense of like, but just little rediscoveries, you know, which is what I think enlightenment is anyway, is just kind of these little journeys of discovering who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's a beautiful description yet again, guys. I mean, there's so much contained in everything you've both shared there, especially the rediscovery aspect, but especially also the aspect of this being a process and very much the correct expectations that people don't come along and try this and everything's solved, because some people have that expectation. I mean, unfortunately, we live in that sort of microwave society, they call it. Everyone expects everything quickly, and of course this takes dedication, which leads me just to an important practical point: is when people are using the medicine, I mean, what are we talking about in terms of regularity, dosages, and the actual structure of how people should use this? I'm going to say as well that obviously for anyone thinking about this, I'm going to say that it needs to be in good company, like yourselves, especially for the first time, and not sort of alone somewhere, I would say. But correct me if I'm wrong. But in terms of this process that people actually go through and how this actually works on a practical level, because I also have to factor in that some people will be hearing about this entirely for the first time, and I just have to be, I'm sort of feeling a little bit nudged to be mindful of that. So for somebody who's beginning or they're thinking of going down this path, what would you recommend in terms of this process, how often they should use the medicine, and all of that sort of thing, as I've mentioned?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, do your research. I mean, I can't stress it enough. Be diligent, do your research, look up who you may go to, who they are, creep their profiles, look at everything seriously, because, it's the Wild West out there. And so many people are doing this, even as we see now with the different things in Texas happening, in Colorado, and all the studies happening, and there are people who want to get on the Iboga train or the Iboga train and make some money, and they see it. And so just really be diligent of where you're going. Part of it, where is the medicine coming from? Be very careful of ordering it online. A lot of places that even they come from Africa, it's not even Iboga. It's other stuff that looks like it, and that can be dangerous too, And when you do find a place, make sure that there is a pre-screening process. So for us, you know, we have a pre-screening process and we have a medical questionnaire, and it's very much like the medical questionnaire you go to at the hospital when you go in for a major surgery. We ask the same questions and everything else because we want to know how your whole body, how the system is working, so they can utilize this medicine properly in a safe way. And then there's the EKG. You have to have an EKG, a 12-lead EKG, you know, to make sure your heart is in good health. You know, people talk about this QT elongation, that's super important, and that's just the part of the EKG where the heart's refilling, getting ready to beat again. And that's super important, but there's a whole lot of other aspects in these EKGs that tell you about heart health and sort of their roadmap of their life, of what's been happening. And it's super important because it needs to be healthy. And of course, there's a lot of psychological assessments, and it's just ongoing assessments. You know, and that's the really important thing is that you must come in a safe way to do this spiritual work, because if you do the spiritual work and it's not in a safe way, well, then you're not going to be in this body to do for that spiritual work to really illuminate, you know. And it's we're for here and for now. This is what we're supposed to be here and working in our bodies now. So it's coming in a really safe way. Dosing, you know, around like Ibogaine, there's a big talk about milligrams per kilogram. That's a very generic in a sense, but really it's even with ours, it's dosing, like titrating to effect. You know, not everyone needs the same amount of medicine. It's how they biotransfer the medicine. So it's being able to understand that and being able to read the person and read the signs and symptoms of your dosing, and you know, and understanding the medicine too. It's, you know, my medical teacher told me, you know, any monkey can give a pill, but you got to understand it. That's the idea behind it. And so having a good understanding of the medicine and of, you know, the human being as well is super critical.
Yeah, so safety is a big one. Because Ibogaine, which is in Iboga, does have an effect on the heart. And then that's what Patrick was talking about with the QT. So it affects the heart. So what medications you're on as well. There a lot of mental health medications can't be taken with Iboga. Things like methadone, if we're working in the addiction world, then, you know, like medications like methadone, you cannot take with, and it has to be months. You have to wean off and then have months in between that and a flood dose of Iboga. So, or even a smaller dose. So there's things to know. And so when you're looking for a practitioner, they should be talking to you about these things. They should be informing you of what you need to know. And if they, to me, if they brush them off, that means they don't have the resources in place that they should. So that's the first thing, because like Patrick said, you know, the point of this is to have a, you know, to enhance your life moving forward. If we're doing harm in the process, then that's not helpful. The experience itself with the flood dosing is long. It's longer than any other psychedelic, so it can be up to 72 hours. That being said, it's not like, you know, there is a flow and ebb to it. And so we usually start ceremony at night. We start giving medicine in the evening around 9-10 o'clock, and then it peaks in that time. And then by morning, it's starting to shift where, you know, you're able to walk. You know, Iboga can affect your motor skill a little bit in the first part, where it makes you a little bit shaky and a little bit challenging sometimes to walk in the beginning. So we will help people walk to the bathroom and those sorts of things. That will be the time where if you're going to purge, if you're going to like throw up, or sometimes people go to the bathroom a lot, sometimes people sweat a lot, you know, those sorts of things are at its most strongest. And that's when we really have to be mindful of people's intake. So how much they're taking in, their fluids, and then how much is coming out. There have been times where people have not been monitored well that way, and they get into trouble. And especially again with addiction, because when people are detoxing and when we're working in that window, especially with stuff like fentanyl, which is like a really sticky, we call it sticky, it stays in the fat cells. You know, we have to be really careful, and people need to be really mindful of the safety around that. And with what's happening now in social media, with the way it's being portrayed, a lot of times you get that kind of language around, you know, one healing ceremony and you're addiction free, but it's never that simple. People are complex. We're never that simple that, oh, this one, you know, dose of anything is gonna fix the rest of our lives, you know. So we have to be really mindful of that, and especially with those drugs like fentanyl, where they can have some really they can kind of hang out in the body a little longer, and they take a whole nother type of care. Yeah, so I think there's a lot to teach people, and I think that's why Patrick and I love to do these podcasts, because there is a lot to teach people. It's hard to do it in short periods of time, and I think it's just going to be over time. There's great people out there that are really trying to educate people in a really good way. And I think, you know, this is a really beautiful medicine, but it demands a little bit of respect. And so to treat it that way, you shouldn't do Iboga for the first time on your own for some of the reasons we mentioned. One, you're likely not getting lab work and EKG to check your liver health, you know, so how are you gonna like get rid of the medicine as it goes through your body? Can you do that well? And then also, is your heart okay to, you know, to have that flexibility for the lengthening of that QT? And are you taking any other medications or supplements that also do that? Lengthen QT, increase serotonin. Those are the things we're looking for. So yeah, so there's a lot. So that's why we say, you know, and in Gabon, they would say the same thing. You would never do Iboga by yourself without a spiritual guide, because we are entering the spirit world. So then there's that physical component, there's the mental component. How much is your mind ready to let go? How much are you going to be able to be challenged with your core beliefs? You know, these can be really destabilizing things if people aren't ready for them. When we challenge someone's core belief about who they are and the way they see the world, and they're not ready for that, that can be really challenging for people. So, you know, and then also, what are they spiritually ready for? You know, it's not just about the mind and the body, but also what was their soul wanting to do while it was here? And how much of a leap forward was it wanting to make? And are we pushing too hard, you know, for something that it wasn't meant to be quite yet? So it's always a balance in that. So that's why you should always have someone there the first time. And even if you've done it before and you want to say microdose, which is like really trendy right now, you should do it with a practitioner
who has a protocol,
who has, you know, can support you, because everybody's going to be different, and how, you know, that should look for them. And even in small doses, Iboga can create big shifts. It's a medicine that loves to talk to us. And like, no, it is very unique. It is unlike any other medicine, and it likes to talk, and it's quite direct. And so even in small doses, you know, you can have a big realization or a big aha moment, and need help to figure out how, you know, how that fits into your life. So
yeah. And one thing that we've noticed with this medicine over the years, it's not really about the dose.
no.
The this medicine has a spirit.
Yeah.
So even a small dose can have that big shift.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a bigger dose for us too, to get that same shift. You know, it gives you what you need in that moment.
And what you're ready for.
And what you're ready for, right? What your soul is ready for. So being able to have someone who can sit beside you while you're going through that is super, super important, because you can be overdosed. You can have too much. It can be too much on your system. And there's no need for it. This is not just plant medicine. This is real medicine. You wouldn't take digoxin or some of these other medications without, without having someone guide you through them. We don't go, yeah, my blood pressure's a little high. I know my grandma, she takes some blood pressure. I'm going to take some of those because it'll help me a bit. We would never do that. It's absurd. So why do we treat these medicines like that? They demand a lot of respect. And when we give them respect, they respect us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that makes so much sense on many levels, but especially the respect aspect, especially the way that you are both so in tune with the people that you work with. Wonderful thing, and that really comes over. But at the same time, people trying this anywhere, being in tune with the process, very, very powerful. Now, with the time that we have today, there's a couple of other things. There's not lots of other things now, but there's a couple of other things before we close out. And we've spoken a little bit, obviously, or actually quite a bit about the practical, physical elements. We've spoken a bit about the spiritual elements, a bit about the mental elements. There's a lot more we could cover with both, but with the spiritual elements in particular, I mean, I would like to briefly touch on, or go a little bit deeper into, actually, I should say, because we've already touched on it, the experiences that you have. Because what I'm referring to here specifically, guys, is we've spoken about, for example, the addictions, the PTSD, the mental difficulties, and it makes a lot of sense that when you're reframing, restructuring, as in the medicine is having that effect, and allowing people to rediscover who they really are, these kinds of processes, it makes a lot of sense. But we've touched on, both of you have mentioned things about this being in tune, the inspiration, the medicine speaking to you, the clarity, the groundedness. Patrick, you said earlier about the fully present aspect, and that being a differing factor and so forth. And it's all of these things. Now, this will be more than we will be able to cover now. But if we were to scratch the surface of this, somebody's using this medicine for the first time, the way that it speaks to you, the way that the spirit world, as Michelle, you made reference to not long ago as well, and the access to these other realms, these kinds of things. I suppose the best way to put this question in a nutshell is to describe in your experiences what that is actually like, because this sounds different in a lot of ways than the ayahuasca and the other stuff that's become very, very trendy, very cool. And really, my question here is to illustrate those differences for two reasons. One being, people may have tried some of those other things but not tried this. Okay, that's fine. Or people may have not really tried anything, and so therefore they have no idea what to expect other than what we see in movies and things, which is obviously not really a reliable witness most of the time. So if the context, I like to always give the context of why I'm asking questions as well, but that is the question of the divine experiences that people can expect to have. I know that there'll be people listening to this thinking, okay, you've mentioned that a few times in passing, but what's it really like? So I would like to delve into that subject, please, and we go from there. But let's talk about that. Thank you.
So what is it like? It's like nothing else. It's like nothing else.
Okay.
We have a lot of people who come to us, and there's a big percentage of people who come to us who've tried everything else, and they're like, we've tried everything, not just for addictions, but for problems of the mind or anything, and we've tried everything else, and they've done ayahuasca, they've done all the DMT types of medicines and such, and it's like, okay, so they come and they're, one of the biggest things we hear from them is that I'm not feeling anything in my head. I feel really calm. Like, they're expecting this grand, like the DMT molecule. It affects everybody in there's certain things when you take mushrooms that you're going to potentially see. When you do ayahuasca, there's certain things you're probably going to experience, and it's across the board. 5-MeO is the same thing. But when you're taking this medicine, it doesn't have that DMT in it. It's just Iboga. And it shows you, like I'd mentioned before, it just shows you in a way that you are going to understand, which may be totally different from the person laying beside you is going to understand. It's going to speak to you in a way that's totally different or the same as the other person. So sometimes people get visions, and they can be beautiful 3D HD TV visions, or they can be something totally completely different that people go, well, this is not as beautiful as the ones I had on ayahuasca. Well, okay, this is not DMT, this is not ayahuasca. Or you might not get visions. You might just have insights or remembering, because this is all about remembering who we are and reconnecting to who we are. If one of your questions is, like, for example, I always joke about it, how do I understand my mother-in-law? She's just like, I need to understand it. Show me medicine, show me how to understand her. It's going to show me. It's not going to show me her, it's going to show me. Because what's important is inside here, So there could be insights. There could be all types of things. We can hear things, we can feel things. And sometimes it's just silent. And it's in this, people are like, I think you need to give me more medicine. We're like, how come? What's up? Well, everything's quiet in my mind. It's just quiet. And they're like, huh. Well, we get them to stand up. We do some, assessments, and they're all shaky. They can't stand. I'm like, you've got a lot of medicine. They go, yeah. Oh, I can feel it. They lay back down and they go. And we remind people that, monks and people who have those practices, they will study for years to be able to have quiet in their mind. Instead of having all this racing that they're experiencing beforehand. As Michelle will say, it's a lot like the old Windows 98 computer. We had to defrag it, all those colors everywhere, and we watch it go, and all this space happens. Iboga loves to create space. It loves the mind. It loves to work with it. So that's one of the things we see as we go through this is it slows down our mind, our speaking, everything that's speaking inside of it.
Yeah, create space.
Create space. So we have room to remember, to create. It's hard to create something if there's so much commotion. It's really hard. And so when there's a quieting of the mind, then we can create the best version of ourselves. We can remember ourselves in these visions.
Yeah, it can be hard. The one thing that, like Patrick said, is the most common is that sort of, we call it like a mind purge. And again, it's like that defragging of the mind. It's like Iboga, and some people literally explain it like if there were filing cabinets in my brain and Iboga was throwing, like, papers were going everywhere and it was cleaning out the filing cabinet.
Yeah.
Some people describe it like that too. And that generally happens for everybody. Other than that, everybody's experience is different, even from one ceremony to the next. Obviously, as well, there's like a cleansing process Iboga does. So it's, there's that physical cleaning, and that's where the purging comes in, and sometimes it is throwing up, but sometimes, you just have to get out and pee lots. Yeah. So it just, even that really varies. But one of the ways, like, the medicine showed me something, and I can share that, is I laid down with the medicine, and I was trying to be like open and like, not try to direct anything. have my mind be clear and I'm thinking I'm doing a good job and I can hear the music because there's always music we play. That's from Gabon, it's Bwiti music and it's playing and I'm listening. And then all of a sudden in the music, I hear, think it, think it, think it, think it. I'm like, what? And then it's like, the curtain opens and I can see all the stories in the back of my mind. So really it's allowing you to see the subconscious, like the programs that are running the mind. And I'm like, oh boy, wow, there's a lot going on back there. And so then my practice after that was to like catch my thoughts. What are the stories I'm creating in my mind when I'm going throughout my day? And really noticing them. Like, what are the stories I'm creating? What are the things that I'm giving energy to? Is that what I really want to be thinking about? Is that where I want my energy to go? Or are there other things I want to focus on? So it's teaching you how to like work with your mind. Like our mind can be our biggest enemy or, greatest companion, depending on how we utilize it. So we need to, it's something we don't get taught. And I think for a long time, we thought the mind was this, once you were an adult, that was it. That was what you had. That was what you got. There was no changing it. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. But that's not true. The mind is malleable. The mind can change. We now know there is neuroplasticity. It's not easy. It takes a lot of discipline and practice. But with these medicines, they can help us. And Iboga is really good at helping us with our mind, not only in what it does to it on the physical level, like, but also what it does in the like teaches us about it. And that is our interface. So when we talk about spirituality, we can't talk about spirituality without understanding the mind and how it works. And I think that's why Iboga that's where it starts for a lot of people. It's in the mind because it knows that is our barrier that prevents us from moving forward. It's what, if it's allowed to run on its own accord, is very fear-based. It's very, limited. And Iboga loves to open that up. And I always say Iboga is like, its connection to source is not, it's fluid. Its reason for being here is not to be disconnected from source. Its reason for being here is to help us see the things we can't and to help answer our questions about life, about who we are, about nature around us, so we can live a better life. And so we have very much like that view with the horse with the blinders on, and it's intentional. It's meant to be there. We're meant to be rediscovering. But Iboga has a bird's eye view. It's the satellite up in the sky. And it can show us perspectives that we can't see. And sometimes it does that by allowing us to communicate with our ancestors. Sometimes it does that by allowing us to do a life review and to see all the places we need to let go and forgive and to move forward from, or, whatever it is we need to do there.
May just let us see our inner critic for 13 hours.
Yeah, it may.
How we've been treating ourselves or talking to ourselves. Right?
So it allows that knowledge to come in. That greater knowledge. And sometimes we can talk to Iboga itself. We can ask questions and it will answer very directly. And Iboga answers are short and sweet and to the point. It's an Iboga answer. And sometimes it allows us to talk right to God. And we, instead of having, an intermediary where we're looking outside of ourselves for answers, it very much shows us that those answers come from within.
And we need to be looking within instead of looking outside for solutions. Everything we have is in here, and we tell everybody. Doesn't matter how you're coming to medicine, if you stop and remember, you're enough. You have everything in you. It's remembering how to do it. It's helping with that connection. And Iboga is great for that.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, what we're talking about here, the inner journey, I mean, it's a very beautiful and powerful thing because so much of our Western world now is focused outwards from a certain perception, and so to bring people inwards like that, what everything you've been saying, the subconscious, the divine, and all of these things, it makes so much sense. But I really feel as well, Patrick, when you said about the mother-in-law story there, and people as you say, it's not about her. It's very much about your own internal responses and beliefs about her and views of how she should be and all of this type of stuff. None of which actually relates to her. So it makes a lot of sense, obviously for myself, but for our audience, the process of a depth of self-awareness or depth of pure awareness, which is also very fascinating because as you've mentioned, both of you throughout this talk, there's a number of things from the stillness of the mind, which would obviously correlate with the Buddhist practices. There's obviously the speaking with the God or the divine energy, correlating with most spiritual religious practices. And there's so many things that people seek all rolled into one here. It's absolutely amazing. So that is a big part of what people want to know. Now, with this talk today, guys, I keep them to about an hour for the purposes that when people listen to this, there's some fun stories for sure, but there's also the practical application. And it's very important to me that people take things away that they begin to at least research or understand or apply, and they don't just listen and think, well, that was entertaining. They listen and think, right, okay, this has changed my viewpoint of something. I need to go and investigate that. And that's why I keep them to about an hour because it's not overwhelming. So we'll wrap up shortly if that's okay. But before we do, I do have to mention, of course, people contacting you both and reaching out and getting involved because people may well look around for something local to them or whatever, and that's fine, but then at the same time your sincerity, both of you, and your passion for this, it's not the best word, but that you can feel the energy of what you're talking about. I'm not just hearing the words, I can feel the energy of all of this around both of you and in both of you, if you like, moving through you, and it's a lovely feeling. So I would obviously say people want to explore this, our audience, the best people are right here. I mean, it's and again, I'm not putting you both on a pedestal like that, but I'm saying the depth of experience, obviously the professionalism. I mean, that's a massive aspect, but the sincerity. I mean, this is something that you genuinely do, that's genuinely changed your life. These days, there's a lot of people who jump on the spiritual bandwagon, because it's cool and because it's become fashionable, whereas you were doing this long before that for much more sincere reasons. And so, with all of that being said, I feel that if people would like to reach out to you, communicate, ask relevant questions, join the online community, or of course, potentially join the retreats, can you both briefly just walk us through the best ways that they can do that, the best ways they can reach out and get involved in one way or another, please? Thank you.
Sure. So we're on social media on Facebook and Instagram as Soul Reflections Iboga. Our website is www.soulreflections.net. And you can email us at info@soulreflections.net. And you can contact us for anything. You may be wanting to go somewhere else, but you want to have information about safety or anything. We'd love to talk to you. Because that's what we love to do. We love to talk about this medicine, about coming in a good way. Whether you come to us or you go somewhere else, we just want you to be safe. We want you to have the experience that is intended for you to have. So we invite any and all conversations because it's that important. You're that important. And we'd love to talk to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's really something that stands out to me because, as you can imagine, over 500 episodes, I reach out to a lot of people and responses vary. I mean, that's all I'll say about that. But suffice to say, with yourselves, it's been such a warm and genuine process in terms of even setting this up. And that's not always the case, as I'm sure you both know very well as well, in spiritual circles. So I will just second that for our audience, that if you reach out to Patrick and Michelle, you'll have a lovely response
Mm.
back, and it's that, that simple. Because as I've already said, you're doing this for the greater good of humanity. Or I often say that a lot of this type of work is for the elevation of consciousness of humanity, and that's very much what I believe, and it's also why I do these. And because you're both very sincerely about that process, then obviously people will get a lovely response. So that is a wonderful talk that we've had, and I'm always aware when I come to the end of these that we only scratch the surface with a lot of things. But then again, we've had the fun stories, we've had the education, and we've had wisdom
Mm.
for people at all levels. Not so much referring to levels of consciousness or any of that, but just levels of experience, different experiences that people have
Mm.
had. We have something for everyone. So I would just like to thank you both so much for doing this,
Mm.
and for being open books. That's what I'm going to say, for being open, so open about your own experiences, as well as the actual practicalities of all of this. Because I always say there's an element of vulnerability that naturally comes in with podcasts, and
Mm.
I know you're used to that because you both share this sort of vulnerable, intimate time with people in the retreats and everything. But nonetheless, I always like to say that I really appreciate that when I do these kinds of talks, because that is what heals people. That's what transforms people, not just the facts, but the heart-centered aspect as well. And you've both put that across beautifully. So I
Mm.
thank you for all of that, and for your time and presence both. So thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure
Yeah, thank you so much.
for being such a gracious host. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to spend this time with you this morning.
Likewise, likewise, an absolute pleasure for me as well. And I hope that our paths cross again. I'm sure they
Mm.
will. I will also send you this as well when I release it.
Okay.
So if you have any uses for it your side, obviously
Mhm.
feel free. And yeah, absolutely, I'll be keeping an eye on everything you develop from here.
Mm.
Beautiful work, and all I can say to close out, guys, is that the world, especially in the modern age, really needs everything that we've spoken about today. Very much.
Mhm.
I'm sure you're all too aware. So please just keep it up. I mean, that sounds cliche in a way, but I actually really do mean it, because people
Thank
need
you.
that elevation of consciousness now. So thank you both, and I wish you both a lovely day ahead. Enjoy.
Yes. You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye now.
Yes.
Bye. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.